the show was like, okay, pick this one. These are the right answers.
If you go to
Try.
where's the
That means this one.
yeah, they'll
It's like I think the one first part. First part. I think it was about
Because they're doing like the UN.
that's why I have to
I got so offended because I got excited to do that. My dad works at the so
kept on going
I'm
until you
getting
got it right.
in a raffle. He entered into the raffle, so basically I got like a free scholarship from it. And but it only applies to that I got accepted, but I
Which is, I mean, I like it.
But I'm actually kind of like happy about it. I feel like you and I were told us
yes, and I would do that.
because like I was driving there and back in Kirby, that was like the cool
Or choice between the two.
Why are you always moving? One day you're here, one day you're there, then you're back there. Also fine.
You was here when I was gone.
Whenever he took his test, he was sitting right there.
No, because somebody else is sitting
You used to sit right here.
Somebody else is sitting here.
Okay, guys, everybody knows that we have assigned seats right now.
With science.
After the 3 weeks of class, we have assigned
No, it's like after the first day. Like after
It's like, this is my class.
Like
Science. No, somebody else that was
She was like from a different class.
Did y'all see what the pictures I posted? I
She
said
was right here.
the subclavian.
It was a girl from my class.
I'm in the middle of looking at
like the smart one, like the rest.
No,
Oh, she's not about to make
yeah, I'll catch you.
I was looking for her on Saturday. You said she was taking a Saturday.
But she did test that day, so she was something. They don't know.
Yes, I take the 10. I don't know if that's I know it's 10. I think it's dedicated. Familiar. Yeah, and I just came from high school, so that's
If you remember, they fused together to form large reducts in the triangles, actually, those will have a depth. If you remember, this is how it's gonna be formed. It's a pyramid rather than a triangle. So when you look at the pyramid from one side, it looks like a triangle, but actually the pyramid has a depth. Alright, so what do we call those pyramids that will be forming the middle of the TV? Those are my pyramids. And if you remember, the tip of the pyramid, through which you're going to be conducting the urine to the stool, that's this called my renal. And once you form the urine, you conduct it to the stool ducts. This is going to be my minor calyx. Minor calyxes will fuse together and will form large ducts. Those large ducts are called my major calyxes. And then the major calyxes will bring the urine in the funnel-shaped tube. This is my renal calyx. And remember, the renal calyx is going to be bringing the urine out of this vascular tube. This is the ureter. And remember, kidney brings the urine down in the ureter to be conducted to this vascular sac. This is my urinary bladder. And the urinary bladder is going to be accumulating the urine to the point where it's going to reach its maximum. At this point only, you're going to be contracting the urinary bladder, releasing the urine to the outside through the other vascular duct here. This is my urine. This was a quick overview of the structure of the kidneys that we discussed last time. If you remember, the functional unit of the kidney. What did we call the functional unit of the kidney? This would be my nephron. If you remember, structural unit of the kidney that will allow the functional unit of the kidney that allows it to produce the urine. This is my nephron. And remember, how many nephrons do I have in each kidney? I have 1 million nephrons. 1 million nephrons per kidney. And if you remember, what's forming your nephrons? Your nephrons are formed of tubules and capillaries. Generally speaking, I am formed of tubules. And around those tubules, you have capillary beds. And if you remember, what are the different parts of the kidney tubule of the nephron? First, we have this cup-shaped tube. This is my Bowman's capsule. We have those convoluted tubules, proximal convoluted tubules.
And distal.
We're then going to have a tube that travels down and then back up. This is a loop up handle. We have the distal convoluted tubules. And finally, we're going to have the collecting ducts, which are going to be collecting the urine from multiple nephrons. And those collecting ducts are going to be conducting the urine here through my renal pyramids. Like this. What I see on here, those are the collecting ducts. They are conducting the urine from the nephrons, and if you remember, we have two kinds of nephrons. One is going to be only located in the cortex, and we call this type of nephrons, those are my cortical nephrons. And we have a type of nephrons that will have long groups of Henle, which are going to be located here, if you remember, at the junction between the cortex and the medulla. At the junction of the cortex and medulla, here this is close to the medulla, so we call this type of nephrons juxtamedullary nephrons. Juxta means next to medulla, juxtamedullary nephrons. So again, what are the two types of nephrons that I do have? Either I am only located in the cortex with a very short loop of Henle, I will call those nephrons are my cortical nephrons, or I am located at the junction here between the cortex and medulla for me to have a long loop of Henle that travels down into the medulla of the kidney. You see on here, I have a long loop of Henle that travels down. This is the cortex, this is the medulla. So I have a long loop of Henle that travels down here. I am located very close to the medulla. I am called the juxtamedullary nephron. Juxtamedullary nephron. All right? You remember something like this? Yes. If you remember, how do I produce urine? By having an interaction between the fluid inside those kidney tubules of my nephron and the blood vessels that will be surrounding them. Can you remind me, what are the blood vessels that we've seen around those kidney tubules? First, cup of capillaries. So I will be using blue because I don't have red marker. All right, for the buttons. It's dry. All right, so we're using this instead of the red. Right? Don't get confused. So blue is blood. All right. So first, I will be receiving the blood in the first duct of capillaries, which are going to be located inside the bonus capsule. And if you remember, what do we call those capillaries inside the bonus capsule? This is my glomerulus. Around my kidney tubules, remember around is peri, so I will call those capillaries around my kidney tubules. Those are my peritubular capillaries. Peritubular capillaries. Peri around, and around what? I am around the kidney tubules, so I will call them peritubular capillaries. We'll see another set of capillaries. This time they will be surrounding my loop of Henle, especially the long one in my juxtamedullary nephron. And because those vessels are going to be traveling down straight, remember straight is recta. A straight vessel. It's my vasa recta. Vasa recta, straight vessel. Why do I call it a straight vessel? Because simply it travels straight around and move on to loop of the juxtamedullary nephron. The interaction between the fluid inside my kidney tubules and the blood in those capillaries, either glomerulus, peritubular capillaries, or vasa recta, the interaction between those two fluids is what will result in the formation of the urine. Remember, the first step of urine formation is to filter the blood. Where is the blood going to be filtered? It's going to be filtered in here, in my glomerulus. And remember, in your glomerulus, in order for you to move fluid from your blood to your bolus capsule, do you think you will need to have a high or a low pressure? High pressure. So if this is my blood, this is my bolus capsule, in order for me to push fluid from the blood to the capsule, I need to have a higher pressure in my blood compared to my bolus capsule, in my glomerulus compared to the bolus capsule, for me to push this fluid out in the bolus capsule, in this direction. Do you remember what is the amount of water or fluids that you're going to be filtering per minute? This is my GFR, my glomerular filtration rate.
120 to
Just
125
was, you see on here, GFR, one of the last things that we discussed last time. this was 120 to 125 millimeters per minute. This is 25% of the circuit of the cardiac output that will be supplying the kidney. This will result in a filtration of 120 to 125 milliliters per minute. So again, in order for me to allow the filtration to take place, I did need to create a high pressure within my glomerulus. What allows you to create this high pressure? What are the two factors that we mentioned last time that allow you to create a high pressure within the glomerulus? First one is that you are receiving the blood through arterioles. You remember what is the arterioles that's going to be bringing the blood to the inside of my glomerulus? This is my afferent, exactly, artery. So why arterioles going to be creating a high pressure within the glomerulus? Remember, what is the word, the other words that we use to describe the other name for the arterioles? Those are my resistant vessels. And resistance vessels, if you increase resistance, can you remind me what's going to happen to your pressure? If you squeeze, you apply more resistance on the hose, what's going to happen to the pressure of the water? Increases. So if I have arterioles here, I have lots of resistance. This increases the pressure of the fluid passing to the inside of the glomerulus. Another factor that we've seen will create a high pressure within the glomerulus is the difference in the diameter between the afferent arteriole and the arteriole that will be draining the glomerulus, which is going to be my efferent artery. So if I'm telling you I'm getting 12 liters and I'm only draining 5 liters, what's going to happen to the difference? It's going to be filtered. If I'm receiving 12, I'm draining 5. This creates a high pressure in between. You keep adding 12, you're draining only 5. 12, 5, 12, 5, 12, 5. What's going to happen? You build up pressure and you cannot tolerate this high pressure, so what's going to happen is the fluid will travel out. So it will start to travel here from my glomerulus to the Bowman's gaps. Can you remind me, when we did our calculations, what was the amount of fluid that you're going to be filtering per day? Relying on this. If I have a normal GFR, I am filtering 120 milliliters per minute. Do you remember?
Wasn't it like 715 liters?
Like a 170 something liter.
Oh, yeah.
170 something liter per day, right?
175.
175 liters
Okay.
per day, right?
Right.
So do you release all this amount? Do you remember this? Yes? Yeah. So do we release all this amount out as urine?
No, only 1%.
We don't release 175 liters out as urine here. So what you're gonna do? You're gonna need to get back most of this fluid. I need to reabsorb most of this fluid, and this is the second step in urine formation. So we did filter in the glomerulus, and we did reabsorb more than 99% of the fluid back. And if you remember, which part of the nephron would be mainly concerned with reabsorption? That did have cuboidal cells with dense microvilli to enhance the reabsorption. Remember, if you are depositing a check, you get it today as soon as possible. But if you're paying, you're gonna wait until the due date. Right? So we did get our stuff back as early as possible. Remember? So we did perform most of the reabsorption in the very proximal part of the nephron, in the proximal convoluted tubules. And if we are still having toxins, urea, uric acid, you want to keep them. They were not filtered here. No, I don't want to keep them. So I want to secrete them. This is the third step in urine formation. So whatever you still have that you want to get rid of but didn't pass by filtration in the glomerulus, you need to actively secrete it here. And this would be the third step of urine formation, which is the tubular secretion. So we've seen 3 steps of urine formation. First one is filtration, and where is filtration is taking place? It's going to be taking place in the glomerulus. You're allowing large amounts of fluid to travel from the glomerulus to the bolus capsule. But remember, all this filtrate that you are releasing out in the bolus capsule will not be released as urine. Urine is representing less than 1% of the filtrate. So I need to get back most of what I did filter. So once you get back all what you want to filter here, you might still have stuff that you are willing to get rid of. So how do I get rid of? Secretion. Remember, what part of the kidney tubule will be mainly concerned with secretion? This would be my distal convoluted tubules. And if you remember, that's why the cuboidal cells of the distal convoluted tubules did have much less microvilli compared to the proximal convoluted tubules. They are not performing much reabsorption. They are mainly concerned with secretion. If you remember, it's a trick question we've seen. So which one is going to be performing reabsorption? Both. Which one going to be performing secretion? Both. So both will be performing secretion and reabsorption, but this proximal convoluted tubules are going to be mainly concerned with reabsorption. Distal convoluted tubules are going to be mainly concerned with secretion. We did also discuss last time the different forces that will be enhancing the filtration to take place and the structure of the filtration membrane. If you remember, what is the filtration membrane? This is a junction between your glomerulus and your bolus capsule. And if you remember, we did mention that what kind of capillaries are going to be located in your kidneys? You remember? Fenestrated capillaries. And if you remember, fenestrated capillaries are formed by fenestrated endothelial cells. So they have pores in their structure like this. And those endothelial cells of my glomerulus, those are the cells of the blood vessel on here, are going to be lying on basement membrane, a gel-like basement membrane. And this gel-like basement membrane up here is going to be negatively charged. The third layer of the filtration membrane that we've seen, if you remember, those were my cells of the bolus capsule itself. And remember, those cells didn't have feet, so we did call them podocytes. What will you be able to filter and what you won't be able to filter? Remember, 3 things that won't be filtered. The first one is going to be
blood cells.
Blood cells. Blood cells. If you remember, cells cannot be filtered because simply they are larger than the fenestrations of the endothelium. If you remember, the fenestrated capillaries did not allow me to pass cells back and forth to my organs. The only type of capillaries that allows cells to travel, those are the sinusoidal capillaries. It's not the case in here. We don't allow cells to travel in the fenestrated capillaries. So cells are going to be kept in your circulation. They will not be filtered. It's not normal to have blood in the urine. We don't allow blood in the urine, blood cells. Either white blood cells, red blood cells, any kind of cells will not be able to travel because of tiny fenestrations. They will not be able to travel through those fenestrations. Another thing that won't be able to travel from the blood to be filtered, those are my plasma proteins. And if you remember, the plasma proteins are negatively charged. Like what do I have in the structure of the filtration membrane was negatively charged. Also, this was my basement membrane. So whenever you got two negative charges getting closer to each other, what's going to happen? Would I have attraction, repulsion? Repulsion. So plasma proteins, as they come closer to be filtered in the bolus capsule, they will be moving away from the filtration membrane and they won't get filtered. So also it's not something normal to lose protein out in the urine. And this is actually one of the signs of nephrotic and nephritic syndrome. So if we find albumin, plasma protein out in the urine, this means this kidney filtration membrane is destroyed. Because of the disturbance of the basement membrane, if I have disturbance of the basement membrane, this means I did develop inflammation that disrupts this negatively charged basement membrane. And if I have disturbed the basement membrane, you've lost this negative charge, so what's going to happen to the proteins? They will start to travel out in the urine. All right? Am I going through this so fast? Yeah, good. We're just trying to have a recap of what we mentioned last class. I know that you've got the test in between, so most of you didn't go through this part. All right. So this is a recap of what we mentioned again last class before our test. So again. First things that won't be able to get filtered is going to be the blood cells. Blood cells will fail to pass through the endothelial cells, in between the endothelial cells, or through the fenestrations of the endothelial cells of my glomerulars. The other things that will fail to get filtered is going to be the plasma proteins because they are negatively charged, like the basement membrane. And whenever I have two negative charges, I will have repulsion in between. The third thing that you won't be able to pass is going to be the macromolecules, like my hormones, for example. If I'm releasing thyroxine, if I'm releasing growth hormone, would you like this growth hormone to pass out in the urine or to be kept in your circulation to affect your organs?
Kept.
To be kept in the circulation. So why is this growth hormone, why is this thyroxine won't pass in the urine? Because simply most of those are macromolecules. And macromolecules are larger than those filtration slits located between the feet of my podocytes. Macromolecules also will fail to travel from my blood to my filtrate. All right? Good? So far, anything? Any questions? Anybody got stuff? Yeah. All right. So, remember, what are the effective pressures that will allow the filtration to take place? We mentioned that I need to have high pressure in my glomerulus, right? And what allowed me to create this high pressure within my glomerulus is the difference in the diameter between the afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole. And being actually supplied by arterioles, this will increase my glomerular blood pressure. We will be considering two different types of pressures when we look at the filtration. We have a pressure called hydrostatic pressure. So if I am telling you, do I have fluid in this bottle? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Does it have a weight?
Yes.
Yes.
if you leave it like this, does it apply a pressure?
Yes.
Yes. So does it apply pressure on my hand?
Yes.
Yes. If it applies a pressure, does it move? Does it do something? Just its presence creates a pressure, because whenever you have something, it has a weight, and applies a pressure. So if I'm telling you I have fluid, this means this fluid will directly apply a pressure. So here, the movement of the fluid with the gravity is applying a pressure. If I'm looking here, my heart is contracting, it's pushing the blood forward, so the fluid movement, because of the cardiac contraction, will be applying pressure. So the pressure of the blood that will be reaching the glomerulus here is going to be what we call hydrostatic pressure. So hydrostatic, simple way to understand it, whenever I have fluid, this fluid has mass, and this mass will create a weight, and this weight will apply pressure. So having blood in my vessels in here will create hydrostatic pressure. Do I have fluid inside my Bowman's capsule? So I have fluid in here, which is my blood. So on this side I have blood. And on this other side of the filtration membrane I have my filtrate. Do I have fluid on this side? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And any fluid has a weight, right? And anything that has a weight applies a pressure. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So I have hydrostatic pressure of the blood from this side, and I have other hydrostatic pressure of the filtrate coming from the opposite side. This is applied in this direction. Hydrostatic pressure of the blood is applied in the filtration direction, and it's opposed by the presence of fluid on the other side, which will apply an opposing hydrostatic pressure. This time it's from my Bowman's capsule. So again, first pressures that we're looking at, this is called my hydrostatic pressure. And hydrostatic pressure, you have it whenever you have fluid. Do I have fluid in here? Blood. Yes. Do I have fluid in here? Yes. Filtrate. So each one will apply a pressure, hydrostatic pressure, but they are opposing each other. So if I told you that the hydrostatic pressure of the blood is equal to 55 millimeter mercury, so I'm pushing the blood, I'm pushing fluid from my blood in this direction with a pressure of 55 millimeter mercury. And the filtrate is pushing in the opposite side, from the opposite side by a pressure of 15 millimeter mercury. This is the hydrostatic pressure of the glomerulus. This is the hydrostatic pressure of my capsule. Questions? Questions? Another pressure that we need to put into consideration is the presence of solutes. Do you remember? If I have a semi-permeable membrane, it doesn't allow the solute to travel through the inside or outside of the cell. And I have high solute concentration on one side of the membrane and low solute concentration on the other side. But this solute cannot pass by diffusion. So what I need to do in order to equalize the concentration on both sides of the membrane, if I cannot allow the solute to travel, I need at this point to allow water to travel. And the water movement is going to be from low solute to high solute. This movement, if you remember, this is called osmosis. Osmosis, right? So you're moving from low solute concentration to high solute concentration. which side has a higher solid concentration? What do you think? Your
The
blood
filtrate.
or your filtrate? If I'm
Filtrate.
telling you that the blood didn't allow the blood cells to travel, did not allow the plasma proteins to travel, did not allow the macromolecules to travel in the bolus capsule. So who will have a much greater solutes concentration? Who will have much more solutes? Blood or filtrate? Blood will have much more solutes. And if I have a high solute concentration on this side, low solute concentration on the other side, water moves from where to where? From low to high or high to low? From low solute to high solute. So this is my osmotic pressure. Because I have lots of solutes in my blood compared to my filtrate, those solutes gonna be sucking fluid from my bolus capsule. Is this enhancing filtration to take place or opposing the filtration from taking place? Is it allowing fluid to travel from your blood to the bolus capsule or opposing this movement? It's opposing this movement. See on here, fluids are trying to pass back to my vessels, to my blood vessels. This osmotic pressure that you're gonna have in your glomerulus, this is what we call the blood colloid osmotic pressure. And it's gonna be equal to 30 millimeter mercury. So if I'm moving from the blood to the bolus capsule, I'm moving from the glomerulus to the bolus capsule, what is the force I am moving with? What's the force that I'm pushing the fluid out of my blood to the bolus capsule with? 55. And what are the opposing forces that are pushing back? 15 and 30 millimeter mercury. So will I have any filtration taking place? What do you think?
Yes.
If I'm pushing from one side by 55 and from the other side I'm pushing by 45. Will I have any net pressure?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the difference now? 55 minus 45. I will move to this direction by 10 millimeter mercury, and this is what we called last time. This is my net filtration pressure. Do you remember when we were pushing the chair against each other last time? Right, so I was pushing by 55, he was pushing by 45, so this will reduce the filtration, yes, but it will not stop. I will still have a net filtration pressure of 10 millimeter mercury. But you notice on here, any drop, any major drop in the blood pressure, what's going to happen? If I didn't have a drop in my blood pressure, what's going to happen?
It wouldn't be.
My kidney is the first one to suffer. Because filtration at a normal blood pressure, I have a net filtration pressure of 10 millimeter mercury. So if you have a drop, major drop of the blood pressure, so it drops to let's say 80 millimeter mercury to stop. What's going to happen? Almost no filtration will take place because you rely on the blood pressure to push. This is the main force that pushes the fluid out, and that's why your kidneys hate hypotension. If you remember, what organ hates hypotension, drop in the blood pressure? Kidney. Because if I have a major drop in the blood pressure, will I be able to filter anything? And if I'm not able to filter, as if I'm not present, as if I don't have kidneys, all those uric acid molecules are going to be kept in the circulation, affecting my metabolism.
If you have an individual, for example, that has, like everybody's blood pressure is different in ranges, and if someone's baseline blood pressure is on the lower side, does your body just accommodate for that? Or having like a consistently lower pressure?
Yeah, having consistent lower pressure, but I might have normal hydrostatic. If you remember, we have two things to regulate blood pressure. We we have the regulation, generalized regulation, which regulates the mean arterial pressure, and we did have localized regulation also. So the interaction between those two regulation systems, it should be providing me with enough hydrostatic pressure in my glomerulus. If this did not work, I will have, my kidneys will suffer. So in the examples that you're mentioning, if I have normal lower blood pressure, slightly lower than normal, so will this affect my kidneys? No. Your kidneys will accommodate by another way, by, for example, dilating its own vessels to get more blood movement to it.
But you're talking about acute, like acutely dropping blood.
Acute, yes.
Okay.
This is what we mentioned in case of shock. If I did bleed, hypovolemic shock, if I have anaphylaxis, vascular shock, if I did have multiple myocardial infarctions, for example, cardiogenic shock. So those all will cause kidney to stop filtering the blood. All right? Questions? So again, what organ hates high blood pressure? Kidneys block. Heart. What organ hates low blood pressure? Is your
Kidneys.
So whenever I have a drop in my blood pressure, my kidney will start to release hormones to increase the blood pressure. And here comes the most important topic in this chapter. So looking here at the part of the kidney that will be detecting any change, any drop in the blood pressure, and will respond to it. This is my juxtaglomerular apparatus. Juxta means, as you mentioned, juxta is close to. I am an apparatus, glomerular, located close to my glomerulus. So if we're looking on here, this is how the juxtaglomerular apparatus looks like. It's formed of what? It's formed actually of modified cells of the loop of Henle, modified cells of the afferent arteriole. You see on here, this is my juxtamedullary nephron, juxtaglomerular apparatus. Juxtaglomerular apparatus. If you remember, juxta close. I'm close to the glomerulus, so I'm called juxtaglomerular. And this apparatus is mainly concerned with regulating any drop in your blood pressure, increases your blood pressure. So what are the two things I need to monitor here that gives me an impression about my blood pressure, the state of my blood pressure, if I have a drop in the blood pressure? First is going to be the degree of stretch. If you remember, degree of stretch applied to the wall of the vessel. This marks your blood pressure. So if I have less stretch, this means I have getting enough blood or not?
No.
No. If I have a decreased stretch on the wall of the vessel, this means I am not getting enough pressure, blood pressure. So part of my juxtaglomerular apparatus is going to be your afferent arteriole, the part that receives the blood. In the wall of the afferent arteriole, I will have modified cells. Those are called my granular cells. So again, what are the granular cells that will share information of the juxtaglomerular apparatus? This will be my granular cells. And what are the granular cells? Those are modified smooth muscle cells of your afferent arteriole. What else will give me an idea about my blood pressure and how am I responding to it? What is the first recommendation to give to a person who has hypertension? To do what? To stop eating salt. To have a sodium-free diet, right? Why? Because sodium raises your blood pressure. How?
So normally, I'm releasing any extra water out. But if I'm having lots of solute intake, especially sodium, what's going to happen? If you have lots of solute, what's going to happen?
You'll retain.
It retains water. And if it retains water, what's going to happen to your blood volume? Increases. And if I have an increase in the volume, what's going to happen to its pressure? Its weight increases. So something that tells me if I'm having a good regulation of my blood pressure or not is going to be the amount of sodium that I will be releasing out. So how will I detect the amount of sodium that I'm releasing out in the urine? By those modified cells of my loop of Henle. So you see here, two major contributing cells to form the juxtaglomerular apparatus. We have modified smooth muscles of the afferent arteriole. They are responsible to detect what? Degree of stretch. And they will respond. And who are checking after those granular cells? Those are the modified cells of my loop of Henle. They are detecting the amount of sodium that you did get rid of to lower or increase your blood pressure according to the state of your hypertension detected here. And those cells need to communicate. So you're going to have a third type of cells located in between the granular cells and the modified cells of the loop of Henle. Those are having gap junctions. And if you remember, why do you have gap junctions between your cells? To allow free transmission of cellular signals. So you have two types of cells. One is detecting my degree of stretch, gives me an idea about the amount of blood getting to my glomerulus. Those are modified cells of the afferent arteriole. Those are called my granular cells. Those will act as mechanoreceptors. They are detecting the degree of stretch. They are mechanoreceptors. Compared to those modified cells of the loop of Henle, this is called my macula densa. The macula densa is going to be acting as a chemoreceptor. What I mean by chemoreceptors, they are responsible to detect chemical changes. And what chemical change am I detecting is the amount of sodium. This gives me an impression about how good am I regulating the blood pressure. If you are willing to lower down, you're supposed to release more sodium than this. If you are willing to increase the blood pressure, you should release less sodium than what I see coming out of the loop of Henle. So it's like making sure that the granular cells are responding to the change in the blood pressure. And how would they communicate together? By having a third type of cells in between. Those are having gap junctions to allow the free conduction of the signals between those cells. Those are called my mesangial cells. So again, three types of cells that we can see on here. The first type of cells that will share in the formation of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. This will be my granular cells. Granular cells are modified smooth muscles of the afferent arteriole, and they are acting as mechanoreceptors. They are responsible to detect the degree of stretch of your afferent arteriole. Why do I call them granular cells? Because simply inside those cells you have granules of a hormone called renin. If you remember, when we discussed the functions of the kidney last class, what are the two hormones that you release from the kidney? Go back to
few slides ago. What are the two hormones that you were releasing out from the kidney? First one was my renin. Second one is my check the functions of the kidney. Check the functions of the kidney. The list of functions that we mentioned. Mention endocrine functions of the
Is
kidney.
it erythropoietin?
Erythropoietin.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what was the erythropoietin is responsible for? Formation of red blood cells.
Yeah.
How about renin? Renin is responsible to
Regulation of blood pressure.
yeah, regulate the blood pressure. So here, my granular cells, once they detect, you see on here, once I detect a decrease in the degree of stretch, I'm acting as a mechanoreceptor. Those granular cells will become activated and will start to release renin to increase your blood pressure. The other type of cells that will share in the formation of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, this would be my macula densa. And those are modified cells of the ascending limb of the loop of Henle that are acting as chemoreceptors. They are detecting the amount of sodium in the filtrate. Another type of cells, those are the extraglomerular mesangial cells, and they will be responsible to conduct the signals between the macula densa and my granular cells. So again, what are the three types of cells forming your juxtaglomerular apparatus? Those are my granular cells, which will be acting as what kind of receptors? Mechanoreceptors. And I have a second type. This would be my macula densa, which are modified cells of the loop of Henle, ascending limb of the loop of Henle. And they are acting as what kind of receptors? Chemoreceptors to detect concentration of blood in the filtrate. Sodium. Alright? So chloride will pass anyways, as we're gonna learn. So once you allow sodium out, chloride will follow. This is positive charge, negative charge is gonna be full. Alright? Third type of cells that will be sharing the formation of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. This will be my extraglomerular mesangial cells. And remember, mesangial cells, they have gap junctions to allow the communication between the granular cells and my macula densa. Okay? Why did we call the granular cells granular cells? What kind of granules do I keep in those cells? What do you have? What hormone do you release from those cells? Renin. Renin. Right. All right. So I did detect decreased stretch, kidney, haze, low blood pressure. So it will start to release renin. How renin is going to be increasing your blood pressure? Renin doesn't have a direct action on your vessels, on your heart, on anything. Renin function is to activate an inactive plasma protein called the angiotensinogen into a more active form, but it's not fully activated yet. The more active form that will result of the activation of the renin to the angiotensinogen is going to be angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 needs to be activated, another step, needs to pass through another step of activation to become the active form, which is my angiotensin 2. So the active form of this hormone is going to be angiotensin 2. And the enzyme responsible for the conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, this is my angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE. So one of the most famous drug families that we're going to be using to treat hypertension are ACE inhibitors.
what are ACE inhibitors responsible for? They are preventing the conversion of angiotensin 1 into its active form, which is angiotensin 2. So again, how your kidney will increase your blood pressure, we didn't know yet, but the first steps is to convert angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. Then angiotensin 1 going to be converted by ACE to angiotensin 2. All right, questions? All right, questions? Do you want to have a break?
We say questions and like we don't know how to ask a question.
How to
Because
ask?
right now we're taking it in. It's like, yeah, okay. Sounds familiar.
Are you convinced?
Yeah.
All right, so again,
Okay.
your kidney. So it's so it is so logical, you see. So your kidney is responsible to do what?
Filter.
Filter the urine. And we've just mentioned that we need to have enough pressure to filter, right? So if I don't have pressure, would I be able to filter?
No.
No. So if I did have a drop in my blood pressure, whatever the reason, would your kidney love this?
No.
No. So it tries hard to increase your pressure.
Right.
So the part of the kidney, it's a microscopic apparatus. It's a very tiny cluster of cells located next to the glomerulus. So we call this juxtaglomerular apparatus. So it's a tiny cluster of cells located next to the glomerulus. So when the scientists discovered it, they called it the apparatus next to the glomerulus, juxtaglomerular apparatus. And by research, we found out that the participating cells of this cluster are modified cells. They are not regular muscle cells of the blood vessel. They are modified. They have inside granules of renin. So they call those cells granular cells because simply they did find that those cells have granules inside. And we've seen that the loop family actually, so it's very cool. So everything is condensed together. It's not like this. I did like 3-1 nephron to show you, but actually it doesn't look like this in real life. You see, they are very close to each other. So this is actually part of the loop family. So it's split in here. So it's like having this loop family very close to the glomerulus. So it's pulled like this. So you have, try to imagine you have 1 million of this in your kidney. So everything is close to each other. And actually all those nephrons are located in this outer part of the kidney, in the cortex. So everything is close to each other. So here, when we check the other cells sharing the information of this apparatus, we find out that it's formed of cells of the loop of hand. And those cells, we then discover that they are responsible to detect the amount of sodium in the filtrate. Because what am I exposed to here? I'm exposed to what I did just filter. So what I'm able to detect is what I'm exposed to. And what I'm exposed to here is going to be the filtrate. So I'm detecting changes in the sodium concentration in the filtrate. This is what I have. And what I have in here is blood. And I need to have high pressure in order to filter. So here I'm acting as mechanoreceptor. I'm detecting the amount of stretch. This gives me an impression about the amount of blood. So you see on here, if I'm getting 12 liters, this drops to 5 liters. Will you have more or less stretch? Much less stretch. So this means you're not getting enough blood. And if you don't have this pressure difference, you will not be able to create enough hydrostatic pressure to push the fluid out.
Yes. So having low stretch, this means I have a problem for the kidney. Because low stretch means low pressure, means no filtration. If no filtration means you don't have kidneys. So would you love to have low pressure as kidney? No. How would I increase the pressure? I will release my granules. And what is the content of those granules is renin. How renin can increase your blood pressure? This is what we're talking about here. So renin is actually not acting by itself to increase your blood pressure. The function of the renin is to partially activate a protein that you have in your blood, circulating all the time in my blood, called angiotensinogen. What converts it to a more active form, angiotensin 1, is the presence of renin, which can be released in case of low pressure detected by the kidney, by the juxtaglomeralar apparatus. So renin now activates angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1, but still it's not fully activated. It needs to become activated into angiotensin 2 for it to have an effect. So the enzyme that is located in your vessels, it's not in the kidney now, you did release the renin out in the blood circulation, converts the angiotensinogen out in the blood, angiotensinogen converted in angiotensin 1 out in the bloodstream. Angiotensin 1 now is going to be converted into angiotensin 2 still out in the blood vessels. But who carries the enzyme that will be converting angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2? This will be my in-cabinet. So whenever I want to treat a person with hypertension, what I need to do is prevent having the hormone that would be increasing the pressure. How would I prevent this from taking place? You're going to be inhibiting the angiotensin converting enzyme. So we're going to be using medications called ACE inhibitors. All right? This is better now?
Mm-hmm.
How angiotensin 2 is going to be increasing the pressure? 5 different ways. First way is, first remind me please, what is pressure? What's mean arterial pressure? Mean arterial pressure? What's any pressure? Pressure is flow against
Flow against resistance.
Mean arterial pressure in my arteries, this will be my flow, which is my cardiac output times resistance, the resistance, right? This is what I will be trying to modify here to increase the blood pressure. Angiotensin 2 is going to be first constricting your arterioles. And when I constrict the arterioles, what's going to happen to my blood pressure? Remember, when you constrict, will you have more or less resistance? More resistance. And if I have an increase in the resistance, what's going to happen to my pressure? Increases. So first way by which angiotensin 2 is increasing your pressure is by constricting the arterioles. And when you narrow the diameter of the arterioles, this increases the resistance, and as you increase resistance, this increases your pressure. So you're going to get the pressure that you want back. Another way by which angiotensin 2 is going to increase your pressure is by enhancing the reabsorption of sodium. And again, when you get solutes, especially the sodium, what will follow the solute? Water. So if I'm telling you that angiotensin 2 is enhancing the reabsorption of sodium, so the sodium that you did allow to pass out in here is going to be reuptaken back to your blood. What will follow the sodium? Water. So a rule that you need to keep in the back of your mind for the next 2 classes, sodium is followed always by water. Whenever I say sodium did move, this means water did follow. So if you didn't lose water out in the urine, because you didn't reabsorb the sodium, which is going to be followed by water. If I didn't lose water out in the urine, what's going to happen to the volume of the blood? If I didn't lose water out in the urine, what's going to happen to the volume of my blood? Increase. So as you increase blood volume, what's going to happen to its pressure?
Increase.
And when you increase pressure, here your kidney is happy. So again, second way by which angiotensin II is going to increase your blood pressure is by retaining water, by reabsorbing the sodium. But how do I reabsorb the sodium? I have two ways by which I will be reabsorbing the sodium. I have a direct effect on the kidney tubular cells, and I am enhancing the release of a hormone from the adrenal gland. So I have two ways of action here to reabsorb the sodium. I am releasing aldosterone from the adrenal gland. In the same time, I have a direct effect on the kidney itself. Two ways by which I will be reabsorbing the sodium. Moving on to another effect of my angiotensin II to increase your blood pressure. This will be stimulating the hypothalamus. And remember, hypothalamus was responsible for the release of a hormone called ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. Anti-diuretic hormone, what was the action here? Can you break down the word? Prevents the loss of water in urine. In other words, you are retaining water in your blood. So ADH here that you're going to be releasing from the hypothalamus, going to be reabsorbing or retaining water, just pure water. It doesn't have to be following sodium, just pure water. Back. This is the effect of ADH. And if I am pulling water back from the filtrate to my blood, what's going to happen to my blood volume?
Increase.
Increase. And when you increase volume, what happens to its pressure?
Increase.
Increase. Also, what else you have in your hypothalamus? You have the hypothalamic thirst center. So once you have a drop in your blood pressure, you feel thirsty and you're going to be grabbing a beverage to drink. And once you drink, this increases your blood volume back to normal. So you are stimulating the hypothalamus to release ADH, preventing the loss of water out in the urine. Also, you are going to be stimulating the hypothalamic thirst center that will give you thirst sensation. And once you drink, what happens to your volume? Goes up. What's going to happen to its pressure? Goes back up to normal. We're not increasing above normal, we're increasing back to normal. When we say increase of the blood pressure, we're not increasing beyond normal, we are just trying to maintain it normal in response to a drop. Another function of angiotensin II is going to be to constrict the efferent arterioles. Alright, so now I will be convincing you with the totally wrong information. Alright? And you're going to be telling me, you're going to be pointing out to the part which is wrong. Alright? So if I told you, here, I am constricting the efferent arteriole. This is my afferent. My efferent. Afferent is bringing 12 E.
12.
And the efferent is going to be bringing normally 5 E. So if I constrict the efferent arteriole like this, less fluid going to be in my efferent, right?
So the difference between the diameter of the afferent and the efferent is going to be larger, right?
No. Wait, hold on. Yes, yes. Yes.
Yes. So here, rather than having 12 liters coming in and 5 drained out, you're going to have 12 coming in and let's say 3 drained out. So what's going to happen to the pressure inside my glomerulus?
It's
as a
going to
result?
increase.
It should increase, right?
Yes.
Because you're getting more than what you're draining, so it should go up. Because the pressure difference did increase. And if the pressure difference did increase, allowing higher hydrostatic pressure, increasing the hydrostatic pressure within the glomerulus, so this allows more or less filtration to take place. What do you think? More fluid will pass or less fluid will pass if I am increasing the pressure within the glomerulus.
More pressure.
If I'm increasing the pressure, so more fluid will pass, right? Yes. So if I'm allowing more fluid to pass from my blood to my Bowman's capsule, so what's going to happen to my blood volume? So I just, so again, what we're saying. So I did constrict the efferent arteriole. So the difference between the diameter of the afferent and the efferent is going to be large. This creates a higher or a lower pressure in your glomerulus, higher hydrostatic pressure in the glomerulus. And if I did increase the glomerular hydrostatic pressure, what's going to happen to the filtration? This 55, rather than having 55, let's say is going to become 65. What's going to happen to the amount of water that you're going to be losing out in the filtrate?
You'll be losing more water. It's going to increase.
Increases, right?
Yes.
And if you increase the amount of fluid that you're losing out in the urine, what's going to happen to your blood volume?
It increases.
So if you're losing fluid out, what happens to your blood volume? Decreases. And when you decrease volume, what happens to your pressure? Decreases. So how come the efferent arterioles, once they constrict, they will be increasing your pressure, not decreasing your pressure? So what's wrong of what I've just mentioned? Right? We're going to discuss this after the break. Right, so think of it. 10 minutes. We're going to be back. If you've got your coats, back coats, you see that you're going to have about 2 minutes. So what we mentioned is that when you consider the ether, you're going to be creating much more pressure difference. This will enhance the filtration to take place. More filtration means more water loss, means lower blood volume, means lower blood pressure. This is what we meant. Why this is wrong? Because simply reabsorbent is going to be much more powerful. Is this rain?
Yes.
It's coming down.
Ooh, this one. No. I just have my hair done.
All right, so
But I don't want to drive home.
it does look like it's rain. Oh well. I'm not sure why do I have 2 umbrellas kept always in my car.
In your car.
But if you leave it in the car.
It's like maybe 2 years
Always in my bag.
Alright, back to the heat.
Oh wow,
Back
it's
to the
82
heat.
degrees.
Alright, so why? It's not gonna be a major thing. It will not drop my blood pressure constricting the efferent arteriole because simply, what is the difference between urine and filtrate? Urine is less than 1%. Actually, reabsorption is gonna be much more effective in determining your blood pressure than the filtration itself because you are performing lots of filtration which will not affect the urine output. If you remember, if I am releasing that much fluid in the kidney tubules,
What allows me to get most of it back is that I have high or low pressure within my peritubular capillaries. So, you remember this? So in order to filter, I didn't need to have high pressure within my glomerulus, right? But in order to get back water, I need to have low or high in my peritubular capillaries, low pressure. And remember, why did I have low pressure in my peritubular capillaries? How did I create this low pressure in the peritubular capillaries? If you remember last time, we mentioned that because you are getting the blood from the afferent arteriole, which has a narrow diameter, it will give you much less blood, which will create much lower pressure. So if I'm telling you that I will constrict the afferent arterioles, this means what? This means less blood is going to be going to my peritubular capillary. So let's say on here, if the pressure in my kidney tubules here is 7. Why is it 7? Because you've got 12 and you're grading 5. So if I have, this is my peritubular capillary, this is my kidney tubules, all right? 7 is higher or 5 is higher? 7 is higher. So pressure is higher in your kidney tubules. So water will be moving from high to low. It's going to be reabsorbed. If I told you I will constrict the afferent artery, so the pressure, rather than allowing 5 liters to travel in the peritubular capillaries, it will drop to 2 liters, let's say. And the amount of blood that you're getting is still 12. So the filtration is going to be difference between the two, which is going to be 10. So now I have 10 in my kidney tubules, and in my peritubular capillaries I have 2. Which one is higher? The kidney tubules. But the difference that will allow reabsorption to take place is going to be much higher, so 12 and 2. So I have a pressure difference of 10 now, which allows much more reabsorption. And if I have much more reabsorption taking place, what's going to happen to the volume of my blood? If I'm getting more fluid back, because I did create a higher difference between the two pressures. More water coming back, and if I have more water coming back, my blood volume increases. And as you increase the volume, what's going to happen to the pressure?
Pressure increases.
So why did not increase? It did not decrease, as you told us before the break, because simply you are performing maximum filtration. All the filtration that you need is taking place. If you add more filtration, was there something that's going to happen? No, simply because you're going to get it back by reabsorption. But having extra reabsorption, this is what's going to affect your pressure. Not having more filtration. So the main factor here I am affecting by constricting the afferent arteriole is a drop in the peritubular capillary pressure. And if you drop the peritubular capillary pressure, more reabsorption going to be taking place. If more reabsorption takes place, more blood volume will be built up. And if you're going to be increasing your blood volume, what's going to happen to its pressure?
Increases.
That's how angiotensin II, when constricting the efferent arteriole, will increase your blood pressure. This is what's written on here. So if you see on here, you're going to be constricting the efferent. This will decrease the peritubular hydrostatic pressure, increasing my fluid reabsorption. I have a very minimal effect here in terms of filtration. My main effect is going to be on reabsorption, not filtration. Another way by which angiotensin II is going to be increasing your blood pressure is going to be by reducing the filtration this time. Those mesangial cells will be contracting. You see on here where the mesangial cells, extraglomerular mesangial cells are located? Close to the glomerulus. So if I contract those cells, I will be pulling those vessels, the glomerular vessels. And if you pull those vessels away from the bulbous capsule, would you have more or less filtration? What do you think? If I'm moving the vessels away from my bulbous capsule, do you think I would be able to filter like before or no? No. If I have less filtration, what's going to happen? Less water will be lost from your blood. And if you are not losing, you are gaining blood volume. And if you gain volume, what's going to happen to your pressure? Increases. Anybody's confused? All right. So you see on here. So in order for, let's say, those two bottles to allow fluid to move from one to the other, they need to be located like this. If I did pull this part away, I have less exposure between the two bottles, right or left? Right.
Correct.
Yes, so the less surface exposure you're going to have, this means more or less exchange will take place. Less exchange. So here I have much more exchange. Here I have much less exchange. And what kind of exchange will you be performing? If this is the blood and this is the urine, this is the filtrate that's going to become urine. Water is passing from the glomerulus to the bulbous capsule or from the bulbous capsule to the glomerulus. What do you think? During filtration, you're moving water from blood to filtrate, right? So if I have less exposure to the vessels, to the bulbous capsule, like this, I did reduce the surface area available for me to filter. And if you have less surface area available for you to filter, this means less filtration will take place. And if less filtration takes place, less fluid gonna leave my blood to become urine. And if less fluid leaves my circulation to become urine, this means I'm drinking from outside. I'm getting other fluid, but I'm not losing as much. So what's going to happen to my blood volume? The amount of fluids that I did not allow to pass in the urine
Increases.
it's going to increase. And if you increase the amount of blood in your vessels, what's going to happen to your blood volume? Increases. And what's going to happen to its weight?
Pressure.
Increases.
Pressure.
So the weight applies pressure. So the pressure of my blood will
Go up.
Blood.
So mesangial cells are like pulling this bottle like this, creating less exposure between the glomerular vessels and the bulbous capsule. Is it better now? Alright, so I won't be adding more physiology today. Alright, so we're going to be doing the dissection. Dissection of the kidney is much easier than the dissection of the heart.
Thanks.